Do dairy farms pollute? More to the point, do the 100 or so dairy farms in Whatcom County contribute to documented water quality problems? The Department of Ecology thinks so, and they are proposing expensive new regulations that will almost certainly mean the loss of many, if not most, of our dairy farms. Family dairy farmers say no, we don't pollute, and if our own state government drives us out of business, our farmland will be replaced by residential and urban growth that we know contribute to our water quality problems. So, who is right? It starts with the cows, about 48,000 now in Whatcom County, considerably fewer than just a few years ago. But those cows poop. That means manure, and lots of it. Manure is organic fertilizer, and it is very important to farmers because crops can't grow without the nitrogen in fertilizer. Manure is one of the best sources. The manure, or nutrients as farmers call it, is applied to the fields such as corn and grass. The nitrogen goes into the soil, converted by bacteria into nitrate, which is picked up by the plants and they grow. Nitrate in plants is good for you, contributing to heart health. But if the farmer applies too much nutrient, more than the growing plants can take up, then the nitrates go deeper into the soil. If the nutrients are applied in wet, rainy conditions, the nitrates can go deeper into the ground and in some cases enter groundwater. Nitrates in groundwater comes from a variety of sources, including natural sources, but too much of it, and it violates the current maximum amount for drinking water. Years ago, farmers weren't aware of this and applied nutrients anytime, regardless of weather and whether the plants needed it or not. They had no place to store it until manure lagoons were built. In 1998, a large set of regulations called the Dairy Nutrient Management Act was passed in Washington, and that changed the whole game. Nutrients applied to fields were strictly controlled to avoid applying more than plants could use, and especially avoiding application in heavy rain. Manure lagoons were an essential part of this solution because they stored the nutrients until the time was right for them to be used as fertilizer. Now, the Department of Ecology says that dairy lagoons pollute. The solution to pollution, says ecology, has become the problem. But is it true? The best way to tell this is through soil testing. Manure lagoons may leak some, but does that leakage go into the soil where it can impact groundwater to any significant degree? Let's look at one of the most detailed soil tests under a lagoon ever done, one from a large lagoon in Yakima. Lagoons are normally built according to federal standards which require a clay liner. When manure is put in the lagoon, it cures, and the scientists who set these standards state that the cured manure increases the seal of the clay liner by at least 10 times. Not much gets through those two layers. The small amount of nitrogen that does is concentrated in the ground immediately below. You can see that in these soil tests where 1 foot below the lagoon, nitrogen was at 94.5 parts per million, but just 3 feet down, the nitrogen was at 1.4 parts per million, which is below the natural level. That low level continues down until about 9 feet below the lagoon. It jumps back up to 16 parts per million, then immediately drops at or below natural levels all the way down to 43 feet. The nitrogen at 9 feet could not have leached from the lagoon and represents the slow travel of nitrates from fields that likely had too much applied or had heavy rains after applications probably many years earlier. This is one soil test, but what this shows is corroborated in likely the most complete study of nitrates in groundwater, the 2012 University of California Davis study. It says, lagoons, like corrals, may store significant amounts of nitrogen either in a sludge layer at the bottom of the lagoon or in the subsurface below the lagoon. The organic nitrogen stored in the sludge layer or the lagoon is potentially stored there for long periods of time, years to decades, while the lagoon is operating. So we have soil tests and we have a massive science study that shows the nitrogen from lagoons stays in the lagoon or in the very top layer of soil immediately below it. Water quality studies should be able to confirm that. If the lagoons were leaching large amounts of nitrogen, nitrates would show up in groundwater close to those lagoons. What do the groundwater studies in Whatcom County show? First, as this chart from the Department of Ecology shows, groundwater quality in the Sumas Plain Aquifer is generally improving, particularly since 2005. The test locations, sites 31 and 32, are located near the Canadian border and near one of the county's largest dairies. The trend line shows nitrate levels decreasing, particularly near dairies, and these water quality results can be seen in other parts of the county in dairy country. The facts are clear. Dairy farms were a source of water pollution in the past. Too much manure applied on too few crops at the wrong times of the year, but the regulation in place since 1998 has proven effective. Dairy farms are not the causes of water quality problems in Whatcom County. If ecology has any proof of significant pollution to dispute this, we encourage them to produce it. Without such proof, we can only conclude that the massive regulations with their huge expense and paperwork burdens will not improve our environment or water quality, but by driving our dairy farms out of business, they will definitely cause environmental harm.